Basically, central tenet is your time is limited and you can't do everything.
If we never take time, how can we ever have time?
We're not making a conscious choice about what is important.
Hey guys, welcome today. Really excited to be here. We're today reviewing an amazing book. The book is called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkham. Amazing book, great book, loved it. I was recommended this book by my good friend Brandon. Want to thank him for being here today. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
So, Brandon, question for you on this book. Of all the books that you could have chosen to recommend me to read, why did you choose this book?
So I know me and you talked plenty of times. I know you, like me, you read a lot of like self-improvement books. And so this was one of the books in the last couple years that I felt like was more like a contrarian take, I guess, on the try to get more things done, how to use your time efficiently. It's really kind of makes you not second guess, but think about that in a slightly different way.
It's a great book, and honestly, I got a lot of good nuggets out of it. One, I would like to ask you the question, why is the book called 4,000 Weeks?
4,000 weeks ends up being like the amount of weeks for your average lifespan if you live to around 80, which is like, I believe, the average lifespan for Americans.
That's crazy thinking about it. All we have is 4,000 weeks, and most of us already have half of that gone. If you really think about it, we probably will have now 2,000 weeks. So it's an interesting concept to just be able to manifest time in that way, where you're breaking it down per week. So it's a great book. I would like to get as far as the book. Like, what was one of the biggest takeaways that you took from it that you've been able to apply your life to make it better? Some of them. It doesn't have to be one. You can just break it down to top three or just one of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of great quotes and ideas in the book, but it kind of boils down to when you have ambition or you're trying to kind of get ahead or do certain things with your life, there's like this, or the book talks about like this general feeling of anxiety to use your time, quote unquote, wisely. And so when you're I think part of the reason that this intrigued me was becoming a parent in the last few years. And like in the book they talk about like basically the central tenet is your time is limited and you can't do everything. So a lot of these productivity tools that advocate doing this, getting more things done, you can't get everything done, and by definition you can't do everything. So, and I think my realization when we started having kids was like your time's even more limited.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that pressure becomes more, but then you really want to think about like what's important to you, and you don't want to be thinking about other things, like for example when you are with your children or when you're doing something enjoyable. You don't want that worry of I'm not doing something else, right? Like taking away from being present in the moment and enjoying the shortness of life itself.
That's such a hard thing to do, as far as being an entrepreneur or just somebody that really well driven, is to be able to assort your time, manage your time appropriately. Exactly what you said. I think I have struggled with that myself so much, of being in a certain moment with your kids and trying to enjoy that moment and not being able to because your mind is back in the office or in another problem that you're dealing with somewhere else, and you can't be present in that moment. And one of the biggest takeaways that I got from the book that I really enjoyed, similar to what you're talking about, is the guy uses the example of the jar, of putting the rocks in the jar. And I think a lot of people have seen that video of the professor putting rocks in and then putting sand in and then putting, pebbles, sand. And then at the end he pours a beer in there and says you always have time for a beer. So in the book, the author, he uses that example, but what he says is that most people's problem is that they just have too many big rocks to put in that jar. So what tends to happen is what he's trying to say is that we are prioritizing too many things to try to put in that jar in our lives. We have way too many priorities, and we're not able to do any of them, correctly or even to its fullest potential. It's kind of an example of your kids, right? We have so much stuff going on that we can allocate a certain amount of time to our kids and being able to be present in that moment because we have so many other rocks we're trying to put in that jar. So what he's trying to say is this: limit the amount of big rocks you're trying to put in that jar. And I loved it. That was something that was very impactful for me. And he said, give the things the time that they deserve. That was really, really, it resonated really, really good to me because I have struggled with that so much in my life, of being able to allocate the appropriate time to the task that I'm doing because I have other rocks I'm trying to put in that jar. And that was a really good takeaway. I really, really enjoyed. Was there other things that stood out to you in the book that also were helpful?
That one in particular, because it kind of pushed back on, it's not saying that, hustle culture or, productivity is unimportant. It's just a lot of times whenever we're focusing on productivity for its own sake, like we sometimes let other people, either at work or other commitments between friends or family, we let those outside things, basically to your point, eat up. Like, we're not making a conscious choice about what is important. And so by focusing on less rocks, or being conscious and choosing like what is important and just doing those first, ultimately you get those done better and more of those, as opposed to doing them subpar or
Yeah, exactly like what you were saying is our time is limited. And he actually, in part of the book, he actually says essentially what we are is time. He actually says that in the book. I thought that was pretty good. And everybody's probably thinking in their head, well, why can't I put all those rocks in the jar? It's because your time is limited. What fits in that jar is limited. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to force it. We're trying to fit more rocks in that jar regardless. But it's limited. It's a finite thing, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's really more about prioritizing. All right, these are important to me, and this is all that fits in there, and this is all we're going to be able to put in there. So make sure that we prioritize them. And one of the big things that he said on the book to me that was really, really impactful is he says, pay yourself first. Do you remember that part of that book? Where he says, in time, pay yourself first. So he uses that same analogy as far as in finance. In the finance that the guy always talks about, when you're in a business, or you always pay yourself first. When your paycheck comes in, you're going to get a small percentage of your paycheck. And we've covered this in a different podcast with Vanessa, the richest man in Babylon. So when you get your paycheck, you get a small percentage of that paycheck and you put it away. And you put it in your savings, or you put it in the stock market, or you put it whatever. And you're going to find out that if you do that, you're going to be able to figure out what to do with the rest of the money. Right? You'll figure it out. But if you do it backwards, or you say, I'm going to pay all my bills, I'm going to do all my expenses, buy all my groceries, and I'll invest whatever's left, it's not going to work out, because you're going to figure out a way how to spend all that money one way or another. And it's the same with your time. Is if you're not managing your time correctly, and if you're saying, I'm going to pay myself last when it comes to my time, you're going to figure out ways how to fill in your time gaps throughout your day, whether it's with work, chores, yada yada. And you don't pay yourself first with your time and saying, all right, today I have a 24-hour period. I'm going to sleep for X amount of time, and then I'm going to go work, and then you start, paying yourself last. Eventually, you're not going to give yourself time to do the things that you want to do. So you end up anxiety, depression, a lot of things follow because you're not getting paid with your own time. If you do it backwards and you woke up in the morning and said, I'm going to allocate 2 hours, even 1 hour, whatever you have, but I'm going to allocate 1 hour of my time today to do the things that I want to do. Not what my kids want to do, not what my wife wants to do, not what my boss wants to do. Because I want to go play pickleball today for 1 hour. That's going to pay myself first. And you put that as a priority. That's what I'm going to do first, and the rest later. That's paying yourself first with your time. So that was really impactful. I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah, I agree. Which is, you can call it making priorities or paying yourself first. Kind of along the same lines of not letting the outside circumstance dictate what you're gonna do, because right, like it's choice. Like you live with the choice to the consequences of making your choices. Like if you want to play pickleball or work out, or if you want to practice soccer with your kid for X amount of hours every day, like you just have to do it. Right? Like you don't, like you said, it's not like you're gonna have all this time left over and then you're like, okay, this is when I'm gonna work out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. And then the guy uses a really good example of it when he talks about coming up in the technology age, when people started inventing dryers, washers, all these things. They thought that it was going to give the housewife so much free time to do other things. He's talking about in that book, right? He's, oh, these women are going to have a bunch of free time, but they found out ways how to fill in that time to still stay busy. And because they weren't paying themselves first, they're paying themselves last. They're like, well, now instead of washing, once a week, we're washing every day. And my clothes need to be ironed now. And then they take to the dry cleaner. So they just found ways to fill in that time and never had extra time for themselves. So that was something that really stood out to me, is paying yourself first with your time, making sure that you're allocating a certain amount of time throughout your day or week or months to doing truly the things that you really want to do. Not your responsibilities, whether it comes to marriage, kids, work, whatever it may be. It's like, what do I really want to do today? If I had an extra hour, I don't even care if it's social media. Like, hey, if that's it, that's your thing, that's what really you want to do, and that you enjoy it. Hey, but at least let yourself in the back of your mind, hey, I'm paying myself with my time, and this is what I want to do with it. Not that I recommend it. I think you should be doing something better. But if that's what you really want to do, that's what's going to give you good mental health, help your mental health, because you're allocating, paying yourself on time on something that you truly want to do. And I really, really enjoyed that part of the book. So, Brandon, were there other parts of the book that stood out to you that you feel the audience should know about, that something, those other things that were impactful to you on the book?
yeah, I think one of the things he talks about is just how your mind is looking for distractions. Like he talks about social media, and we're like welcoming, either when we're trying to work and we have 100 tabs open about,
The emails, he talks about emails.
yeah, or we're on social media, and it's, I mean, it is in some instances the content itself or the what you're being distracted by, but it's an internal thing of wanting to be distracted, of like wanting to take your mind off of something, because either for a number of different reasons, but one of the main things is that maybe being distracted to you is not, maybe you're scared of the thing that you need to do. Maybe you fear that you're unable to do it to the best of your abilities, or do as good a job as in your mind it should be. Whereas
it's like a focus, right? You're just lacking a focus because, again, your mind's wandering from one place to the other instead of giving the task the time it deserves. And he talks about that in the book. When you're doing a task, give it the time it deserves. And don't lose focus, like what you're talking about, where your mind can wander to other places.
Yeah. Not only give the task what it deserves, but part of the book being about acceptance of limited time is also limited abilities. Like part of our fascination is like, I'm gonna learn chess when I can be as good as, so, but I'm not gonna start playing people because I'm not as good as Magnus Carlsen. Now, first I'm gonna read these 5 books, or I'm gonna look at all these websites, or then that could pertain to any activity or something at work that you're trying to work on, and I'm gonna get started after I feel like I've learned the background, as opposed to like just getting started.
All right. And we were talking about one of the podcasts exactly what you're saying.
So like, you don't need, like, your mind is kind of tricking you into not getting started because you don't have the confidence or the discipline to just get started and then know, like, I can improve once I get started. Like, not starting is holding you back.
Clint had a really good quote. He says, "Start messy, start dirty, but just start."
Yeah.
And then I was seeing this little video, and maybe Danny, you can add it, where there's this rocket ship when they started with a rocket ship, and the first one was a disaster. Like there's just pipes and things going. It was like, right, I think it looks pretty disorganized. But then they show the second version when it gets cleaner, and then the third one and it gets really clean. So it's like just when you start dirty, start messy, but just start. And Clint, it was a really good message because we're so worried about not doing it right the first time, failure, that it hinders you from doing it in the first place.
And it all kind of ties in to where like you then trick yourself into like I'm gonna do all these things when X happens or once I learn this, and in the end, like you don't end up starting half of the things that you say.
Oh, he does a really good example when he talks about this. He says Warren Buffett, and he uses an example when some employee asked Warren Buffett for advice on how to create goals, and Warren Buffett says, "Look, do this. You're starting a goal. Make 25 goals. All right, get down, write them all down." And he says, get the goals and organize them in top priority as far as which ones will be most impactful in your life, starting from 1 to 25. Put them all in order. The most impactful ones, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way to the 25. And then he says, all right, now I want you to get the top 5 and get rid of the rest. And he says the reason for this, he says, because all the rest are going to take away from the first top 5 that you're trying to do. He says they're going to be a distraction. They're gonna take time away from those 5 main ones that are going to be the most impactful in your life. So you complete those 5, and then you rinse and repeat. You start over again. And I thought that was beautiful. It really is, because it comes down to the same concept. Too many rocks in the jar. Your focus is only limited to your amount of time, and our time is limited. So that was a really, really good story. I really enjoyed that, and I was able to apply it even this year when me and my kids started making our goals, and it was very impactful. So I thought that was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you make goals with your kids and stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it comes down, and when I'm doing my goals, I'm like, all right, how much time is this going to take? Am I really going to be able to do it? Am I going to be able to apply the amount of time it takes for it to get done? And it's so good. I'm going to shoot this. I now have this little whisper in my brain after reading this book, because I've always been so impatient. Patience is something that I've always struggled with in my life, because I've always been trying to fit so many rocks in the jar, in my day, in my week, in my month, in my year. Just way too many in there, just trying to smudge them in there. Now, my mentality is, all right, when I do something, I'm going to give it the time appropriate. It's going to take as long as it's going to take, is the voice what it says to me now that it's asking, hey, this is going to take as long as it's going to take, relax. And it calms me down.
Yeah, I don't know if that is in the book or we got that from somewhere else, but I'll repeat that sometimes when I'm
I got that from this book. That's where I got it from. I've never had it in my life. I never got it in my life before. I'm like, get it done as fast as you can because you got another thing going on. And now I'm like, no, I'm going to give this the time it needs, and it's going to take as long as it's going to take, and chill out. I'm like, all right, you're right. This is what it is. And it just calms me down. It brings my anxiety down, and it relaxes. And now I give it the focus it needs, and I really, really enjoy it.
All right, I'll say that to myself, like there's nothing else.
Yeah, sure. But I did get it from this book. I've never thought that way before. Before, even like playing golf, like just taking the time to just clean your club. Before I just grab it and it's all dirty and I'll just throw it in there. Now I'm like, no, gotta clean that club. Give it the time. It's a task. Give it the time, the appropriate time for it. And it's started to creep up to me now in a lot of little things that before I just get frustrated, like because I was just my anxiety was like, I gotta get the next thing done. I gotta keep going. And now my thought is like, no, I don't have time for that today. This is going to take X amount of time. Hanging out with my kids is going to take X amount of times. And I'm only putting so many rocks in that jar. And that's it. There's no more going on. So really, really good. But is there any last thoughts you want to share about the book, Rizzi, that you want to leave with the audience before we leave?
No, man. I just want to say, I'm glad to be on the podcast.
Great having you.
It's encouraging. I want to encourage you to keep doing it. And encourage everybody to keep reading because
yeah, it was great having you. One last word that I wanted to share with somebody on this, that a good quote that stuck with me on this book is that if we never take time, how can we ever have time? It's a great quote that came from the movie The Matrix on one of the conversations Neo was having with Amara Vinci. And I thought it was really impactful, and I never really clicked with it until this book. If we don't ever take time, how can we ever have time? So it's important that when you guys are going throughout your day and managing your time, that you're making sure that you're taking time for yourself and allocating it appropriately. So anyways, guys, great book. Give it a shot. Please subscribe. And I want to really thank Brandon for being here today. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank y'all.